Hi, Stephen. This is Clem Fandango. Can you hear me?
Can you hear me now? Good.
Can you hear me? Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Omega Files. I'm your host, Dr. Freedom. Tonight we've gathered to talk about, well, creepy, scary, finger action. You'd think I was talking about some really disturbed movie that you wouldn't even let your kids watch, let alone be in the same neighborhood as the theater it's airing in. But we're talking about this week's episode. Can you hear me? Papa, can you hear me? And all I can say is this was a really creepy show. All right, we're going to start with the new person. We're going to start at the bottom. Let's start with Jack. Go on ahead and give me your opening thoughts on Can You Hear Me?
I thought it was okay. I think it was incredibly rushed, though. Definitely should have been a two-parter. Honestly, I could have done without Praxius. But I liked Zelen, I think his name was. I didn't really care for the partner. Didn't really get much screen time, but I liked the twist. You think she's going to be good, or like she's stuck in this prison against her will at first. And then it's just some sort of trick by Zelen. I liked that. Was it ever established that they were Eternals, or is it just implied?
I think it was implied. Yeah. They didn't
Either
really
way,
say
it's
it
cool
specifically.
that they were back, but it makes me wonder why bring them back and not Sea Devils. That's pretty much it.
All righty then. Okay, let's move on. Next person up, Beefhead.
Hello, Ray of Sunshine here. I enjoyed this in part because it's a high concept thing, what they were trying to do, and they managed to do the creepy side of stuff with it. But what I did struggle with was sort of where they went with it, because I don't understand the point of it actually going back to Aleppo, why it couldn't go anywhere else. And it all seemed to be wrapped up really quickly. I've got to say, there was an over-reliance on the Sonic. And the bit where it pops out of her pocket and hops up to her hand is just ridiculous, to be honest with you. The Sonic was the magic bullshit device that got them out of everything this week. And it just sewed it up really quickly. I know this year that they said as well that they were going to delve more into Yaz's backstory. And to be honest with you, the mental health thing, while I appreciate it's a good thing, it really felt badly shoehorned in. You didn't really get that with his mate to start with. You got it at the end. I think, to be honest with you, the talking group would have perhaps been better to have been a mixed group. It did look a bit strange, it all being guys in there. Look, you can take it however you want to feel about it. I think to people who have mental health issues, they felt this was important, but I don't think it was as stylishly done as Vincent and the Doctor. Yaz's backstory thing, why you'd celebrate the anniversary of her running away, coming back, I don't know. It didn't really give much background to it. And where they've tried to do Yaz's backstory before in season 11, that seemed just rushed and didn't have to seem to have much significance. And then I quite liked the bit with Graham talking to the Doctor and her reaction, but tonally it conflicts with what should be the idea of trying to reinforce the idea of it being good to talk and someone's going to come back to you. It seems a little bit out of character for the Doctor for there to not be any sort of reaction. It was, like Jack said, it's a high concept, but rushed. I didn't really potentially like the animated bit in the middle. It just seemed a bit hokum, to be honest with you. It needed to be more developed. There needed to be more backstory. I can see what they were trying to do, but it was just done poorly and resolved way too easily and way too quickly. Very sad to see. I'd like to have seen it done perhaps over two parts and develop those characters more.
All righty then. Let's move on. Let's head on over to Lady Neo.
Hello, everyone. This episode, while not as movie-like Praxius, or yes, it was rushed and everything. I have to admit, it was rushed, but I thoroughly enjoyed the message. I liked that we had some insight on Yasmin. The animation part, while it was a little bit worked for me. I liked it. And that creepy aspect that you were talking about, Dr. Freedom, that remember the thing where he was taking off his hands? I literally had to stand up, go in the kitchen, and go cook something. It was a little weird. But overall, it was a decent episode. To me, yes, it felt rushed, but it felt more like a little not slowed down, but more not as exciting, if you kind of get what I mean.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Texas Tim.
I thought this was good. I didn't feel like it was rushed at all, to be fair. I thought, in fact, those scenes at the end felt kind of tacked on in a way. But I understand what they were trying to do. I agree with Beef that this doesn't really teach you anything more about these. It doesn't really develop their characters anymore. Having Yaz have a 3-year flashback, I would have said that might have worked better. If they'd placed that at the beginning of the episode, but then it might have felt like the whole thing was supposed to be Yaz centric, which it wasn't. Basically, they kind of give you a little background on all three of them, and it kind of looks like they're heading to some sort of end for these characters, whether they leave on their own or what happens to them. But they are implying at this point that they're winding these characters down, I believe. And the two series is probably enough for any companion. But otherwise, I thought the episode was good. It was different. I mean, it wasn't your typical story. These guys actually they claim to be gods. At least the guy did. So they weren't really. They mentioned the Eternals, and they mentioned the Guardians, and they even mentioned, which I thought was a bit too much, the toy maker. That was just fan service. Like, oh, we'll just throw it in. Everybody will go. So no, it was. And I didn't have a problem with that animation in the middle. I thought that was pretty cool. I mean, they're taking us out of the story so that this chick can tell you the story of where they came from and who they are. And basically, they're just bored, eternal people that, that the people that they were bothering got sick and tired of them and figured out a way to entrap her in that thing in between. So, I mean, again, it didn't feel rushed to me. As far as the message, as far as, I didn't really think that was too heavy-handed about the what do you call it? They had the message for at the end of it. What's the polite word, Tim? The
mental health issues.
Mental health issues. Yes, I didn't want to say the C word, but I thought that was handled pretty well. I didn't really realize that was what his friend's problem was at first. I mean, I guess the locks on the door are a bit of a giveaway, but it seems to be somebody that's turned into a kind of shut-in character, a shut-in person that needs agoraphobic, I think they call it. But no, I thought this was pretty good. I'd have to watch it again. It didn't feel rushed to me at all. In fact, it seemed to use its time. They tried to turn this into a two-parter. I think that would have been a waste of time. So that's just my take on it for now.
Alrighty then. Okay, let's keep moving. Let's head on over to Bo.
Yeah, I thought this episode was really good. It was really great. I love that the two gods were able to make people experience their worst fears. I love that the male god was able to detach his fingers. I like that he mentioned the celestial toy maker and things like that. I like the monster in this one. I thought it was really, really great. To me, it looked a little bit like a werewolf. I didn't think this episode was rushed at all. I think it was fine the way it was. And it was pretty obvious what scene Chris Chibnall did in this episode. It was the harmless child bit. It was a really great episode. I quite enjoyed it. I didn't think it was rushed at all.
Okay, let's keep moving. Let's head over to Elijah.
So I think that probably the most interesting part of the story was the backstory part. I just feel like they kind of rushed the villains too much and that it was all wrapped up pretty quick. It was definitely Sonic heavy, and I just can't believe that the Doctor is able just to flip the screwdriver out of her coat pocket and, use it that way. It was more believable in Deep Breath when Clara used her feet and just chucked it at Capaldi when they're, tied up in those chairs. Let's see, what else did I have? The Timeless Child scene, we're getting a little more bits of that, which I think is cool. And then also, this is the first episode that kind of just confirmed that Ray Holman that they're doing all the prosthetics and effects in-house now, not going through Millennium Effects. Ian Gelder, great performance. I wish would have gotten a little bit more of him, but definitely really creepy. Jodie's acting was actually really good in this episode. I really enjoyed her performance. Not too overbearing, but yeah, I enjoyed this one.
Okay, let's move forward. Okay, moving on over to William.
Good night, everybody. I'm a little bit perplexed about it. It's not bad, but again, I can say it's very well because in the beginning when you saw the girl get her face wrapped around with her hands, I thought, well, that's the threat that's being controlled by the enemy that popped in the TARDIS and all that. I actually thought in the beginning that he was a Dream Lord, attacking everybody's dreams again like that. All right, he was just a different actor. But knowing that these are supposedly gods like that made it a little bit not bad, considering at the end they tricked the doctor into letting the other one escape from her prison, which teaches you that the doctor's not really thinking everything that she was saying, that I try to solve a solution as fast as I can, but it's so muddled up that I got so many of them. But at the same time, because of this action, you cause almost a disaster to happen. So you need to think more, go back to think the way the some doctor used to think, be a little sly here and there. The thing about the mental issue like that, I can understand Grams, because we know he misses his wife, and of course of his fear that the cancer might come back. That I can understand that. So I'm a little bit shocked that in the end he could have joined the group with Ryan's friend. I mean, he could explain to him, yeah, this is I have this fear that that my cancer might come back like that. So because in a way when he was talking to the doctor of his fear, I don't think she was really paying attention to him. She was looking at him, but she kept looking at the TARDIS like she wanted to, she was saying, let me see something in the TARDIS, but I think she was more paying attention to the TARDIS because she could easily have said, but you got to remember, Graham, my people don't suffer from these diseases like you do. That's how come we live longer like that. That would have been a good, honest answer out of her, and then maybe they could have talked more, what the other two was talking the next scene like that. I don't think that this girl's fear made any sense whatsoever. You saw her in the highway, and she saw one person in front of her, one person behind her. But I don't understand what her fear is. What was the fear? What caused her to run away? I actually thought one of them, I thought maybe the cop her dream was gonna get killed, and that was caused her to become a cop herself. But I don't see her fear. I don't understand this whatsoever. So that made no sense to me. Probably maybe whatever left of the episode, they might bring this up again. I hope so, but that made no sense to me. The girl from the past that she realized the creature was from her own dream. But if it was the thing that was telling me that why would the girl have the creature attack all the people from her town, from the hospital like that? Why were they attacked, those other people? Because to help the lady escape. Yeah, that's the villain's idea. But as we see in the episode, the creature was her fear manifested. So I don't understand because later on, of course, she controlled it to face the gods like that. But I'm like, if she knew about this, how come she gonna? Why would they attack her own people? I said that a little bit. Okay, I can understand maybe some of the people are saying maybe this could have been a two-parter. I think it'd be better if they just would have added 10 more minutes to it, because the way that quick solution at the end, I didn't like it at all. Because you used to freaking Sonic once again to solve all your problems. And if they could have just put 10 more minutes on it, it could have been a better solution. Especially when you had to deal with these people that supposedly have mental issues. I think 10 more minutes could have added to that. So that's my opening statement.
Okay. Moving on, let's go over to AJ.
Hello. Yeah, for me, this episode felt more like a Sarah Jane Adventure story than a Doctor Who. It was almost childlike in its way. I wanted to see these guys be more evil and demented. They was towards the end of the episode, they were just standing in the street talking to each other for who knows how long until they eventually say, oh, let's enact our plan now. And then the Doctor shows up and bollocks it all up for them. Like I said, I wanted to see them be more evil. I wanted to see them maybe, like I said, if you extended it to a two-parter, you have them control people and turn the people against the Doctor, and the Doctor's now on the run. There was so much potential of this story. It just fell flat, this one, to me. It felt like a normal filler that threw in a little bit that's going to be in the end of the season and nothing more. That's all it felt to me. I'm sorry.
Okay. All right, let's move on. Okay, all righty. Move over to Graham.
Tonight on 50 Minutes, companions get fingered. What can you say about this? It's a really interesting concept. I get the criticism there. It did seem a bit rushed, especially the resolution with the Eternals at the end. Sonic Boom and the Orby go. But I really did like Ian Gilda's performance as Zillion. Really like to see more of him down the road, but I've got a feeling they're unfortunately going to be a one and done type character. They struck of very reminiscently the Strudel Peter Eternals for the Big Finish story Persuasion with Sylvester McCoy and Tracy Childs. So I wonder if Shibs has been doing a wee bit of digging and saying, what can I borrow this week? But again, he only supposedly wrote a portion of this, so we'll never get the answer to that.
Well, we find out next week what they bought for Big Finish.
Well, we'll find out, yeah. But I say, not a tale. For good. I get the complaints with the animation, but I get it was a way to basically quickly, relate the story of the Eternal backstory. So I'll let it slide. Plus, I believe it was Cult Box that done the animation. Or somebody along the lines, but they contributed this week anyway. It was good that the companions, again, like as was the case with Praxis, they all had something to do again this week, which is always good. The mental health issue, tastefully enough done, although I've already seen complaints. Yeah, the bit at the end with Graham, how dare you shun that poor man? And then the BBC throws up that stuff at the end, and then they say they're going to have their field day as they do every week. But what can you do there? But all in all, not bad 50 minutes. It does have its problems, but I enjoyed it. And we'll get into more later.
All righty then. Okay, moving forward, let's go over to Philip Archer.
It was all right in its execution of what it was trying to relate to everybody, message-wise in the mental health thing. I didn't like what Tim said earlier. I didn't even realise that was what it was trying to relate to us until at the end with the meeting with all the guys and stuff like that. But besides that, the story itself, it kind of went okay, and then half the time it would just, when it delved into the dreamscapes of people, it kept throwing me off because I kept losing trend of what was going on. In regards to Ian Gilda and his little missus, them being gods, I thought they weren't being godlike enough because it felt like it was too easy to defeat them. Because if you're gods, they're impossible to beat, and it was just like, I'm going to trap you in this. The woman, I'm going to let you face my fear and trap you in a spear. What kind of resolution is that? They just felt a bit underwhelming for me. And the backstory jazz, oh yeah, well that's fine. She needed one anyway, but it wasn't enough. Ryan, you know what? I liked Ryan in this one today. I don't know why, but I did. I kind of like Ryan. Graham and having seen Grace back for that little cameo, that was nicely done. That was good. I do think that Jodie in this one was on high octane because she was like talking 10 to a dozen, moving around like all over the place. Using that Sonic like nobody's business. She was like she was on acid or something today. And I'm like, my God, slow down, woman. She was like she was on acid. So, but overall, the story was okay, but it wasn't that good. I was slightly disappointed with it, slightly. Okay, thank you.
All righty. Okay, let's keep moving. Go to Kellen.
Yeah, I quite like this one, yeah. Nice to see Grace back again, as Philip said. Graham's, you get me A to Z of the universe, and I like that. That made me laugh. First time I think he's ever made me laugh. He's a nice man, but crikey, anyway. The name check of the toy maker, I thought that was cool, but it's we may see the toy maker and Eternals box and everything. And then identifying which plant is going to work. I quite like that. That was funny. I like the intersection at the end. How long is this going to last? How long will they stay with the Doctor? I liked all that. Yeah, I quite enjoyed this one.
Okay. All right, moving forward, let's go to Paul.
Hello. Yeah, a strange one, this one, wasn't it? I mean, to be honest, on the first viewing, I didn't really enjoy it until it got to that bit with the Doctor and the bald-headed guy talking. But on the second viewing, I thought, a bit open-minded. Yeah, actually, it's all right. But yeah, a few points I've got. I quite liked that shot. I think they did it twice of the city, Aleppo, it's called. That was a real nice shot. That I noticed the TARDIS, and correct me if I'm wrong, landed in the exact same place that it landed in Spiders. Yeah, exact same place, wasn't it? Yeah. But I thought this first. I thought we were going to get a Doctor on her own episode, but obviously we didn't. Right, yeah, Ryan's mate's door. The locks. Say someone mentioned the locks on that. Exactly like my back door. My back door's got all them locks on. I think an old woman used to live here. That was familiar. Yeah, someone said, I forget what, Bo, that the monster reminded him of the werewolf in Tooth and Claw. I thought exact same thing there. Yeah. Yeah, the fingers bit grossed me out a bit. Ooh, what the hell with that? The monster in Ryan's dream bit looked familiar. I don't know if anyone else thought that and could identify him, but they look familiar to me. Yeah, good mention for the Eternals and the Guardians and the Toymaker. I think that's the first time the Guardians and the Toymaker have been mentioned in New Who. I quite like the animated bit. Obviously, with the missing episodes getting animated and the ones that the David Tennant ones that were already animated, I've been getting more into appreciating animation. Yeah, we've got the Timeless Child again, so obviously that's tickling us fancy a bit more there. Yeah, that joke offering a helping hand was wrong, though, I thought, because it's fingers, not hand. It's not the whole hand. That was a bit wrong. The music again was gorgeous. And speaking of gorgeous, I thought Yaz looked absolutely stunning in that end bit with her hair down and straightened. I thought she looked really good then. Yeah, nice lead into next week's where they're talking about Frankenstein. I like that. Because I quite like that about Doctor Who in the 60s. Each story led into the next one. I quite like that. And I agree with AJ that it did remind me of a Sarah Jane Adventures episode. So, yeah. But yeah, enjoyed it more or less.
Alrighty. Okay, so let's go to DWC.
Yeah, I did enjoy this episode. And in fact, on the second watch, I actually got more of the references to mental health issues that I think people probably missed on the first one. Like, for instance, the girl that we saw was actually in the equivalent of a mental care unit at the time. And as for characters, these new characters, whether they were Eternals or not, I'm not quite sure, because the Doctor, well, they did imply they were from another universe. I don't know if the Eternals were or not, but whether they were or not, they did say the word ephemerals, which I found interesting, because that's the Eternals word for mortal beings, and also, this was kind of an episode where you could kind of count which parts Chibnall did, because all the mention of the Eternals, the Guardians, and the Toymaker, okay, that's Chibnall. The bit we have a Timeless Child reference bit, that's Chibnall. And even putting the dregs back in there for one of Brian's fears, yeah, that's got to be Chibnall. That's got to be Chibnall's bit. And also, again, to highlight the whole and mental health message that they were going on, I don't know how many people kind of got that was kind of the point of putting them in their fears. It was that is really what puts you through that kind of state in the first place, constantly worrying about certain things. And the whole development with Yaz was the whole reason for her that she ran away from home once because of being bullied at school and all the other pressures that were going on. But overall, yeah, it was certainly a nice episode. I'd be happy to watch it again.
That's what they were, dregs. Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot that Connor's been popping in on us. So let's go to Connor Farley.
I think this episode was all right, but at the end, it massively dropped the ball. Beef mentioned on a previous episode review that there's these TARDIS scenes where the companions show concern about the Doctor's behaviour, or it looks like there's some conflict going on there, and all of a sudden it's forgotten about. That happened within the space of 2 seconds. You see Yaz and Ryan talking about, is this going to be the rest of my life? And Ryan doesn't look too pleased about it. Then all of a sudden the Doctor comes over and mentions Frankenstein, and they just jump right back up again and go back to adventuring. I don't like that, because I think that it stunts character development, and if you're just going to keep teasing that and then stopping it right at the point of execution, really when it should start ramping up, then that's just going to get annoying, and it's lame writing, really. As for the episode itself, I enjoyed it. I really like the mental health message. As someone who knows what mental health, the pitfalls and all that of mental health, seeing someone like Yasmin in that situation where she's sitting by a roadside is very evocative, and it's very it does personally sort of affect you, I think, seeing something like that, because it's a very true and affecting way of displaying mental health. The same with Ryan's mate, with all the house littered, and as Texas Tim said, it makes him look like he's in a shut-in, but it's it's easily something that stems off of serious mental health issues. I liked Zellin a lot. I think Ian Gelder is a fantastic actor. He's been in shows like Game of Thrones and high esteemed TV series like that. He's a great actor. The story itself was all right. I think that it could have done a bit better. I thought the ending, as Beef said, was a bit rushed. It was like Sonic Screwdriver overload. Just wave the magic wand around and it fixes itself. Especially in an episode that is so imaginative. In the way that we even saw an animation bit which we never really get to see. I think the last time we saw anything remotely like that was Fear Her, I think. So to see an imaginative episode have such a clunker of an ender like that, I think was a bit disappointing. And the finger fetish, there was some serious innuendo game going on there. Which was concerning to see. So yeah, move over Tarantino, because Charlene James has got a finger fetish that could counter any fetish in the world right now. Yeah, the prisoner story, I felt like there might have been a bit of foreshadowing there with the Doctor, but I'm not sure. I'll see how that progresses. The two colliding planets, maybe there's a similar situation in the finale with Gallifrey and Earth, because they seem to be the two main playing fields of this series. And having godlike villains, sometimes I think having godlike villains backfires, because there really is no way of defeating them. But yet they seem to come out of this situation seemingly unscathed. And the only thing we really get to see is a flashback to 3 years earlier, of a Yaz that really we haven't seen a sign. It seems like a very sudden and disjointed, as good as I thought it was, disjointed development, because there was never any illusion, or they never alluded to her suffering mental health issues. And that's something that you don't just forget about in day-to-day life. Yeah. Also, another attraction of this episode was Yaz's sister. She's very good looking.
I agree.
Okay, here's my thing with this whole episode. I agree. The ending was too rushed. They built up this really eerie atmosphere, And then at the beginning, you've got the doctor actually using the controls on the ship and all that. The next thing you know, we're going into Sonic land like crazy. And that's one of the things I spotted right off the bat, especially after last week when they used it, way less than they normally do. Then they come back this week and boom, 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 there it is all over again. Whoever the scenes with Ryan and his friend, I thought were brilliant, because me having had my own, little fights with anxiety, a lot of the things his friend, that you saw in his apartment, and especially the part where he's standing there with the can and he's wringing the can in his hands, very symptomatic of an anxiety disorder. And plus the fact, that all the locks on the doors, well, that could be it's a bad neighborhood, or it could be that's also another part of an anxiety disorder. So that part was brilliant. I love those segments with him and Ryan. But the thing with the Yaz thing was the explaining it at the end. That's kind of like trying to explain the joke after you've already told it and nobody got it. That's the vibe I got off it. By telling it after the fact, I think they were trying to do something clever by saying, okay, but the thing is, if they had simply put some more dialogue into the nightmare segment, where you have somebody going, this is when you did this is when you did that, and now that person's not there to save you, blah, blah. That would have worked brilliantly in that case, rather than having this whole big segment saying 3 years earlier. One of the things I can't stand about shows these days when they start jumping around way too much. But the fact that you're trying to explain why everybody is celebrating this, which is weird to me, why you would celebrate the day your daughter ran away. Just creepy to me. But explaining it at the end with a flashback, so it's like, it just took it completely out of order for me. But one thing that would have worked brilliantly, and I agree on, was at the very end, when, you've got Yaz and Ryan having this discussion. I think the doctor's reaction to Graham's thing was brilliant. You have to remember, as much as the doctor's hung around with humans, the doctor has never truly probably understood them. And you're sitting there asking this person who's a complete alien, who's, an outsider for the most part. You're telling this person, this is, your fear, this is what, and then I think that's how the doctor would react. Okay, this is the part where I go over here and I'll think of something to say brilliantly, but, that's how I would see the doctor reacting to that situation. But when she told him about Frankenstein and all that, after having this discussion, Yaz and Ryan, if they had just gotten up a bit slowly, maybe showed a bit of hesitation, saying, okay, we'll go. But, not have them suddenly so excited and just drop that moment. It kind of killed the moment. It took away from that. At least that's the way I felt. Because that was a really good question. It's like, if we continue traveling with the doctor, in the end, are we losing our own lives? Are we losing time with our friends? Are we losing time with our family? What are we giving up to go on this odyssey with this person? And then just hopping up at the end and saying, okay, yay, killed that whole moment for me. So, just a side note, I believe the actor's name was, who played the villain? I'm sorry, I blanked. Gelder.
Ian Gelder.
Ian Gelder, sorry. I had it right, and I should have just said it. He was also the guy who voiced the Remnants, who first mentioned the Timeless Child all the way back in the Ghost Monument. But one of the things was, he didn't want that performance to take away from him having a chance to appear on screen in Doctor Who. So that's one of the reasons why when they came up with this villain, they said, look, you'd be perfect to portray it and all that. He was like one of the first people they called up, because he didn't want doing that bit with the Remnants, taking away any chance he had of actually appearing on the show. And he was brilliant. As Zelen, he was amazing. This guy was just radiating creepy and scary. And it's But like I said, it kind of went a bit slow, though, didn't it? It's like him and his buddy are standing there monologuing away. And then all of a sudden, there's the doctor showed up. Boom, boom, boom. It's over. It's like, wait a minute. I thought the threat was supposed to be double because you got two gods running around loose now. But it's done. But I could see the way they were going, with the young lady there from Aleppo conquering her fear and turning it around on the people. I thought that was a good idea. But it just seemed like to take off at light speed at that point. And they really need to go back to the 1 hour format. They really need to. There was so much more they could have done with this episode that would have made it a lot better. Okay, let's go. Right, hands already going up. All right, let's start with Elijah.
A little clarification on Ray Holman taking over the prosthetics. He actually tweeted that a company called Red Girl FX worked on this episode, and they're a London-based FX company. So I don't know if they are taking over or if it was just for this one episode. But I'm still kind of surprised why Millennium just left after episode 6. You think they'd be contracted for the whole season and then be done, but I just find it really strange that you leave, nearly halfway through the series. But
yeah, I'm wondering if there wasn't a contract dispute or something that went along, because they've been with the company, they've been with Doctor Who for like 15 years, the whole run.
Yep, since Rose.
And then they're gone. It's like, what? It's like, unless there was some kind of like contract thing going on or budget thing going on where they've now decided, let's go with something cheaper. Yeah, that always works out. Okay, let's go to DWC.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to point out, I mean, some pointed out how the monster you saw in it was kind of like the werewolf. To me, yeah, that was kind of a big downside because that animation was just wonky as far as I was concerned. And it's one of those things that makes me want to go, is Deneg really involved in the special effects? Because you've had this monster, you've had that, one of the dregs, I mean, the prosthetic dregs were great, but you had the CGI dreg, and it was completely rubbish. And it's one of those things being think, are they lowering the budget on Doctor Who? And well, am I going to buy further thoughts about that? But equally, another thing to point out, what really gave away how powerful the Zavel, or Zavel, whatever his name was, Ian Glender's character was, but I should have noticed right at the beginning, he entered the TARDIS. And no one is supposed to be able to enter the TARDIS, except maybe a Guardian, of course. But that was just something that I noticed on the second one.
Okay, Graham.
Oh, it was interesting, just touching on Zellian again, Ian Gilder's character. Was it just me when he appeared in Ryan's mate's room during the night when he was sleeping? You know, that big cheesy grin on his face, and up went the hand before the fingers went wonky. I don't know, was it just me, or did he look like Freddy Krueger had grown old and had a skin graft? Just saying.
All righty. Okay, Texas Tim.
As far as the mental health issue, I didn't really think that was intended to be implied for Graham or Yaz. I thought that was mainly just for Ryan's friend, because he was the obvious one that did have the mental health issue. Whereas Yaz basically, I think, got bullied once and felt that, or maybe I don't know if you said that they celebrate that or meet up over that or something. I'm not sure if that's what they intended either. And as far as Graham, that's obviously a real fear anybody who's survived cancers has. When is it going to come back? Because it, like you said, it always does. I do think that the mental health issue was really intended for Ryan's friend, and his conversation with Yaz at the end was mainly because I think he feels guilty that he leaves a friend like that behind who could use his attention. Although, like she points out, they could be dropped off anytime they want to be. They can be dropped off on the day they left, like Polly and Ben were. So, I mean, I don't know. It just seems like, I do think that was just intended for that friend of his. I'm not so sure that they were implying that Yaz and Graham actually had mental health issues. But that's just me.
No, I agree with you. I think, with Graham and Yaz, it was just basic human fears. And then, but yeah, the guy, that Ryan's, spending time with, it's obvious he's got an anxiety disorder, just based off the condition of his apartment, the little mannerisms he was doing, like I said, the crushing of the can and all that just, boom, broadcasted. This guy has some problems he's dealing with. Okay, AJ.
Yeah, for me, what they should have done with that whole Yaz flashback thing is got rid of the 3 years earlier caption and had it at the start of the episode and just left it ambiguous of when it happened. That's what it should have been. Also, the whole thing with the mental health thing, I think technically anyone and everyone nowadays has a slight mental quirk. Doesn't matter how big or how small. We all have something wrong with us. No one's completely sane, so.
Welcome to the human condition. Lady Neo.
When I was looking at this episode and the parts where when he came into the TARDIS, when he was messing with Ryan's friend, I just kept screaming to myself, is this the Nightmare Man? But then I said, wait a minute. Then I thought about the other time that somebody was like that was around. And I said, "Oh, what about the Dream Lord? Remember him?" I was like, "Well, what if it's something like that?" But then I saw that it was, two people. Then again I went back to Sarah Jane again, and I was thinking something along the lines of the Mona Lisa Revenge. But then I said, well, maybe not. So another thing I loved about this episode was the repercussions. They get to see what happens when they go with the doctor, what they leave behind. And that whole bit about them jumping up and saying, oh, wow, let's just go to Frankenstein. I see this. I have to see this in front of my face. Let me go run away again. Let me go run away and see Frankenstein. That way I don't have to deal with it. I can always run away with the doctor, so I don't have to deal with this. I don't have to deal with and loss. I don't have to deal with the cancer. I don't have to deal with my friend and feeling guilty about his mental illness. That's what I see. And that's why I like it.
Okay, Beefhead.
I think to echo a point that you made, and also a point that Colin made, is the acting of everyone who was in this was on point. Jodie was there. There was heavy action, and that's not her fault because that's just the way it's written. But without having that hour format, you're falling down the same line again of having to split your companions up as we've had in the previous weeks, and a lot of stuff happening off camera. I think when you are dealing with a sensitive subject like mental health, like you're doing, there were parts that it would seem jarring that had they have actually perhaps had a longer format, they could have made the addressing your fears, or Ryan perhaps realizing, because at the start he doesn't seem to really have that awareness that his friend is going through something, and he gets to that realization a bit too quickly. I would have liked to have seen him sort of realize it over time, had they have had that longer time, and perhaps address that, how you could perhaps move forward from that. And that's what it is. It's you to give it proper credence. And like Phil said, they're gods. The last time I think we also had a god was the sort of Satan analogy back in the Tennant era. And you can't just well, back in the magic ball you go. It's not as straightforward as that. You have to leave them there in the wild, so to speak, as opposed to just having a very weird reverse BFG, which is what I felt with a lot of the dream bits with fingers going in ears.
Okay, Jack.
Can I just ask, because I don't understand, what was the point of Aleppo Girl or Aleppo in general? They were there for maybe, 10 minutes, and it served nothing to the story. Like, was the girl just there so the monsters could work into the solution? Because if that's the case, why didn't they just use Ryan's mate or Yaz's sister for that part? Like, why did we go to Aleppo in general, and what was the girl even there for?
I think the idea was the idea that she had her own mental health issues because she saw her parents die when she was 7. But I do agree with you. The reason for actually going to Aleppo really doesn't make sense apart from it looks fancy. It would have been better, perhaps, although we've had a lot of Earth-based stories, focus on something like Ryan's mate and perhaps a bit more on Yaz's backstory that then makes sense. You can have a simple, cheap episode that actually does the message more effectively.
All right, Connor?
Yeah, actually, directly on that point, I think Aleppo is a strange choice, not just because it makes absolutely no sense, but there's a lot of political issues going on over there now. There's a Syrian war. So choosing Aleppo, to me, it seems, I think, maybe short-sighted to sort of portray it in that way. That might just be me, especially because, as Jack said, it absolutely made no sense for them to go there. So it was clearly maybe kind of like a shoehorned in decision. And on the subject of Ryan, I'm at the point now where literally nothing can redeem his character. I just think he's a terrible companion because every way that he's written, he's really annoying. I don't know whether that's just the acting. It's probably the writing. But going to your mate's house after several months not being there and acting like that, in the real world, you would probably get a smack in the face by the mate, or a pretty hard and solid rejection. Like, you know, F off, I don't want to be your mate anymore. Because that's not really being a good mate. So I think Ryan, that they've written this part of Ryan to be like this blissfully unaware, ignorant, socially inept guy, and it just kind of it's irritating in a way. And I know that people are like that in the world, but just the way that Ryan's written especially is just really quite irritating. I don't know what it is, and I just don't see at this point, especially if he's going to leave at the end of this series, them being any sort of character development worthy of redeeming him.
I think he came across as more sympathetic in this episode, though.
Did you think?
Yeah, because he realized his friend had a problem and he addressed the problem. He didn't, you know, I think he blames himself. That's one idea I got from it, and I don't think he should. I think he did explain, you know, hey, I dropped the phone calls dropped or whatever. Yeah, you're right. Those are shitty excuses for not keeping up with your mates. But on the other hand, he's kind of had his hands full. It's not easy running around being the doctor's number 2 or number 3. So, I mean, I thought he came across as more sympathetic than he has been in the past, at least.
I think that to be honest, like with a mate like that who he claims is like his best friend as well, why wasn't he just honest that he was traveling around with an alien? It like what harm could it have done? It's not like the mate would like grass him up to the.
Well, he learned by the end of the story.
One thing he did wrong, though, right off the bat: if you haven't been with your mate for several months, you don't show up with chips. You show up with beer. Okay. Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Paul.
Yeah, Elijah and Brian have reminded me of a curiosity I've had ever since the beginning of this Chibnall and Whittaker era. Why was there so much of a personnel change from the beginning of that? You know, what's his name left, the music writer, and you said a load of people left. Why was that?
You got it, Elijah? Go ahead.
I mean, just want to move on to something else, or Chibnall just wanted new blood in there? I mean, we don't really know. Or Chaos in Cardiff.
Chaos in Cardiff.
We don't know.
Fair enough.
I heard it turned into a cage match. Okay. Philip Archer.
Right. The thing about Yaz, I mean, I know she was out when we saw that dreamscape of her. She was out in the open. There's a policewoman talking to her, trying to tell her that the world is not that bad as she thinks it is. Maybe that's what it was. It was telling us that's why she became a policewoman, because that woman gave her the strength to say, believe in yourself and go out and help others. And that's probably what that was.
All right. William?
Here's a question. Somebody could maybe, you know, and then the story that one of the guys was incarcerated in that little cube thing. What kind of energy was able to do that to keep her in there all that time? And then the other one was not able to do anything to either take it out of its orbit where it was at, or to destroy it, so she could just pop out of it, and needed to trick the doctor to do that. And another thing is about the guards is that why would they go to the Earth, since, you know, she's been locked up for so many years? They could have used that time to go to all the other places and all other galaxies and universes to see what's been going on since she's been locked up, to see any of the descendants that incarcerated her still alive, but she could deal with them. I mean, they didn't bring them up or anything like that. Those races that incarcerated her. So I was a little bit perplexed about that.
Well, I'm assuming since they're ramming their planets together, that the people who incarcerated her in the first place are probably long dead at this point. So that's the only thing I can figure out.
I think they said that the amount of energy that it would take to stop the planets from collapsing together is what she was doing, I suppose, trying to stop that. And then her prison was like quantum locked, so he couldn't get into it apart from Jodie and her wonderful Sonic running through the computing power of the TARDIS, or so she said. So that's it. It's sort of, yeah. And the other planets, I don't know. I wanted when them two got joined back together, I wanted a Naked Gun montage with "Woke up this morning, I'm feeling fine." Yeah, that's it as they go through the universe.
AJ.
Yeah, about the planets crashing together. I think it's the gravitational field between the two planets was what was holding her there. I mean, she's still a physical being. She's going to be susceptible to gravity. Also, did that courtyard from Aleppo remind anyone of the fires of Pompeii? That episode with Tennant, with Capaldi in the house. It looked very similar to me.
It also looked like that villain guard scene from Twice Upon a Time. Almost looked like that too.
All right, Graham.
I was just wondering, can somebody remind me what they actually done with the global spear they imprisoned him in at the end? Did she put it somewhere in the TARDIS, or did they take it back to that?
She put it back in the station.
All right. Well, for a minute there, I thought they were going to be somewhere in the TARDIS, and they could be all the other globe, you could sit and have a conversation with the Carrionites and all that jazz, But oh well, that's the WC.
Okay, back to Jack.
In terms of Jodie, did anyone else find the animation to be less flat than her actual performance? I mean, I think she's gotten a lot better throughout the series, but this episode just seemed to be a revert back to exposition. Like, she just seemed to talk and wave her sonic this time to me. She had the nice moment with Graham at the end, I guess, but even that, it didn't really save it for me.
I think that's the writing, really. I mean, she has to do what the script says. If they don't write her anything better than that, then what's she going to do?
Actually, I think she was one of the only good things about that one part of the story, because she was far more animated than she was back in Series 11. One of the big complaints was Jodie can't change facial expressions. She did a lot in this episode. But all right, William.
I got to give props for the effects when the TARDIS was traveling with the girl, and there was that effects of the TARDIS traveling. You got to give props for that. And also, even though it wasn't that much in the episode, this story, part of it took place outside of Earth, even though some scenes was on Earth, like in the past and all that stuff. But at least one of the few times that the Doctor and the companion was outside of Earth somewhere else. So you got to get a little bit of props to that. They could have done the whole episode with that, but.
Okay, Connor.
Doctor Who Poop had the right idea. That dream with Graham should have included the frog, not actually Grace. I think that considering the weirdness of this episode and the avant-gardeness of it, it should have been the frog rather than Grace in her human form. To be honest, that would have made that dream sequence a lot better, in my opinion. I think.
Who the fuck are you?
No, the use of Grace was actually perfect, because you got to remember, he's one of the things his friends brought up, and he kind of like blew it off immediately. Is how you've been doing without Grace. So he still misses her, of course. Come on, they were very much in love. So having her in a nightmare makes more sense than the frog, because she's the one who's turned on him now, and she's delivering the bad news. The cancer is back. You're going to be dead within a couple hours. It's like, holy crap, what'd I do? Forget to take the trash out again? No.
And at which point, for you, the chase is over. Yeah.
Well, we've been going on for about an hour. Let's go ahead and rate this sucker and put it to bed. All right, let's start at the top. DWC out of 10. How do you rate? Why'd they call this episode Can You Hear Me? I still don't get that.
Yeah, it was the first word spoken in the episode. Can you hear me?
Okay, maybe that's why, but okay. All right, let's go to DWC. What do you rate this one out of 10?
Bouncing between a 7 and an 8, but I think I'll go a 7.
Okay, Paul.
Yeah, but to be honest, I didn't really enjoy this one as much as the ones that's come before. Although it's a bit different, I like the variation, but for some reason I just didn't enjoy it as much as the previous one. So I'm going to give this one an 8, I think. 8. Yeah.
Okay, you shocked me there. Okay. Normally they're all a 10. Oh, you caught me off guard. Okay, Callan.
Quite like this one. I'll just give it an 8. Thank you.
Okay, Philip.
Because I thought it was executed kind of not really the right way I thought it was going to be. I'm just going to give it a 6. Unfortunately, it was one of my favorite episodes.
Okay, Graham.
Had some good stuff in there that I'd like to see touched upon again, even though sadly I don't think it will be. I'll stick with the same as last week, 7.5.
All right, AJ.
Yeah, for me, if it was the Sarah Jane Adventures, it'd be a high number, but Doctor Who, 4.5. And by the way, can you hear me now?
Okay, William.
For an episode that one of the villains gave everybody a wet willy, but it really needed a little bit of a fix, so I'm gonna give it a 6.
Okay, Elijah.
Clem Fandango can hear you, AJ, and he will rate this one a 7.
Okay, Bo.
I'm giving it an 8. It was really good.
Okay, Lady Neo.
I liked this episode. I really did, even though it wasn't as fast and crazy like Praxius. But I liked it. So I'm gonna probably be the only one to do this. I'm giving it a 10 out of 10. I liked it.
All right, Beefhead.
While it had atmosphere, it struggled, I think, to run the two stories. It should have either been one or the other. Going to Aleppo really made, story-wise, very little sense for me. I applaud what they're trying to do with mental health. They've done it before, and it's been done more adeptly before in the series. And at the moment, it is now, as we're running out the clock on this season, it shows that still that there are just too many companions. To be honest with you, I wish, watching this episode, we'd lost one by now, because perhaps you could have given more screen time that things that needed to be done in it. I'm going to give it a 5.5.
Okay, Jack.
I think I need a desperate rewatch for this episode. I've only seen it once thus far, but 7's in my head, so that's what I'm going to give it.
Okay, Connor.
I think I'll give this a 6.5. It needs a second rewatch for me as well.
All right, Texas Tim.
I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was actually pretty good, so I'm going to give it a 9.
Okay, me personally, I'm going to give it a 7. And that's mainly because of Ian Gelder's amazing performance. I agree. I agree with a lot of you. I don't know why they even bothered with the Aleppo thing. I really don't. It just seemed to me like it was just there to go, oh, look, we've got a time travel element in this story. And, oh, look, we've got another character from the past. And meanwhile, you could have had her part, like, I'm glad you guys brought this up. Her part in this whole story could have easily been done by Ryan or Ryan's friend, Yaz, or someone Yaz knew, or something like that. And you could have focused that time you spent on going back to Aleppo on the other, characters. Now, Graham's bit, I think, was brilliant, because of the fact that, like most cancer patients who've gone into remission, that fear is always there that it's going to come back. And I think they did that brilliantly. Also, as I brought up before, the guy who did Ryan's friend, and the way they set it up, brilliant. Because that to me showed this guy is definitely going through some other issues and what's going on with the nightmares. But the whole thing with Yaz and the fact they waited to the very end to pop up and go, oh, 3 years earlier, I hate shit like that. You could have done that so brilliantly just by adding it into the nightmare sequence itself. Having, the nightmare characters go, you abandoned your family, blah, blah, blah. This was you 3 years ago. Right there, you could have done it right there. Then going 3 years earlier. And the fact that it seems to me that the family's getting together every year, and I don't know, I'm going to have to rewatch this again, because are they actually celebrating the anniversary when their daughter ran away? That's just freaking creepy to me. It really is. It's like, well, sis ran away a few years ago. Let's get together and bake a cake every day. Oh. But yeah, I can't give this thing any more higher than a 7. It could have been so much better than it was.
On topic of why they put it in Aleppo, on the second watch, I think the doctor did say how that hospital, I think Aleppo was revolutionary in mental health facilities. I think that was why they were doing it.
That's what there's a lot to say. They went there because they were top in the mental health at that time, and probably since then.
Yeah, true. Maybe I just missed it. Maybe I'm just a cranky old guy. It could be. All right. Well, folks, don't forget to join us next week as we get together and talk about the haunting of Villa Diodati, I believe it's called, where we're going to meet Mary Shelley, Lord Byron, and some other very interesting characters. And hopefully it's a lot better than this one, because this is one we've been looking forward to ever since it started getting rumored. They started talking about it. And, plus we're hoping this is going to lead into the finale. So hopefully they're going to pick it up as we get towards the finale. And I agree with Beef. At this point, I'm hoping that some of these guys are taking a trip, because they've really been cutting it too fine with this many companions this season. They really have. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a great night. See you on the flip side. Catch you next time.
Come back next week when there's a costume change.